In 2023, political victories were scarce. Back home, divisive partisanship and political dysfunction were the norm. Serious crises abroad, in the Middle East and Ukraine, presented significant obstacles for the United States. The defining political achievements, when they existed, usually revolved around averting catastrophes. In June, it appeared that the U.S. would default. In November, a government shutdown was avoided. Not much was done in the way of more ambitious or expansive actions. In the meantime, the American people were polarized and unsatisfied. In October, an Associated Press/NORC poll revealed that 78% of Americans, or nearly 4 out of 5, believed the country was going in the wrong way. Strong negative feelings are also evoked by President Biden and former President Trump, the two clear favorites to run for president in the next year's election. According to an AP-NORC survey conducted in December, 58% of adults said they would be unhappy with Trump as the GOP nominee, and 56% said they would be unhappy with Biden as the Democratic nominee. Nevertheless, a number of individuals managed to salvage a measure of moral triumph from an otherwise dismal year in politics, while a great deal more fell victim to the downturn. Victors. Rep. Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Johnson is by far the largest 2023 victor if winning is defined as being in a higher position at the end of the year than when the year began. In January, Johnson would have been difficult for many people to recognize, even on Capitol Hill. A social conservative from Louisiana who hardly ever made national headlines, he was starting his 4th term. Johnson comes in 2nd place for the presidency at year's conclusion. Johnson was elected Speaker in the most conventional manner possible, as the least undesirable, most agreeable choice for a party weary of the mischievous behavior of its most obstreperous members. Following the overthrow of Rep. Kevin McCarthy, R. Calif, by 8 dissident Republicans, the GOP conference selected Reps. Steve Scalise, R. Law, Jim Jordan, R. Ohio, and Tom Emmer, R. Maine, in succession. Nobody made it to the finish line. For Johnson, the 4th time proved to be the charm. Johnson has the benefit that most of his colleagues don't have the stomach for another round of speaker instability, even though he is not a cure-all for the issues plaguing the House GOP party. Although there are still many difficult topics to address, including as immigration and the conflict in Ukraine, Johnson emerged victorious this year. Former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Out of all the candidates running for the GOP presidential nomination this year, only Haley's reputation has clearly improved. Haley's presidential candidacy was merely a possibility at the beginning of the year, and several doubters questioned whether she would leave much of an impact. She ends the year on the verge of taking the lead in replacing Trump. Her debating performances were a major contributing factor to her achievement. With her sharp, succinct, and composed style, she emerged victorious in the first 3 GOP debates, giving her candidacy a boost at just the right moment. Haley's campaign has likewise gone smoothly, eschewing the controversy that threatened to topple Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Additionally, she made a name for herself as a candidate who, although stylistically very different from Trump, hardly criticized him in the early going of the campaign. That worked better in a party where around 80% of voters thought well of the former president than the more aggressive frontal attacks of former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. With the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primaries approaching, Haley's criticism of both Trump and DeSantis is becoming more pointed and aggressive. It is important to note that, assuming the polls are accurate, she is far, far behind Trump. Haley is a much more well-known national figure now than she was a year ago, even if she does not win the GOP nomination. Former President Trump. There's a compelling argument to be made against considering Trump the victor of 2023. He was not charged with any crimes as of January 1. He is currently facing 91 accusations in 4 separate indictments. His current tactics to avoid a moment of truth, asserting his immunity, attempting to extend the deadline, and inciting his base by disparaging judges and prosecutors verbally are not likely to be successful. In the meantime, Trump is intensifying his venomous remarks, calling his opponents vermin, threatening to pursue political opponents through the legal system, and charging undocumented immigrants with poisoning the blood of our country. However, Trump wins the year just by virtue of being in a considerably stronger position at the end of the year than he was at the beginning. At the time, he appeared weak even inside the Republican Party, with the defeat of several of his primary supporters in the 2022 midterm elections. There was a big threat from DeSantis. However, the Trump Teflon turned out to be more durable than his critics had predicted. As of December 30, the Hill and Decision Desk HQ's national polling average had Trump leading DeSantis by more than 50 points. In a CBS News/YouGov poll conducted on December 15, Trump led by 36 points even in Iowa, a state where he is somewhat less popular. The obvious conclusion is that Trump has a huge lead to be the Republican nominee. Although there would be far more competition in a general election, it would be foolish to wager against Trump winning back the White House in light of Biden's dismal support ratings. Combination: Ramaswamy, Vivek. The 38-year-old businessman frequently gives the impression that he is unique, but the second part of the year exposed him as a tired political type, the one who rides a wave of originality and freshness until it crashes. From the beginning, Ramaswamy stood out in politics because he advocated for a new generation to lead the country while simultaneously almost being sycophantic in his praise of Trump. His first ideas were striking, but they were also unwise politically or practically. Eliminating the FBI was one suggestion. A politician whose primary appeal was to younger people made the poorly advised decision to raise the voting age to 25, save in specific cases. Ramaswamy also performed poorly in the debates. His choice to insult Haley's kid for using TikTok during the third debate may go down as his most regrettable moment. "You're nothing but filth," Haley retorted. Those who fail. Biden president. Biden would most likely lose a general election against Trump if it were held today. Before Election Day, the president might yet be able to regain his position, maybe helped by the prospect of an avoided recession. More likely, he might persuade enough people that Trump isn't qualified for such a position. But in a year that ended with polls showing him at or close to all-time lows, it's extremely difficult to perceive Biden as anything but a loser. Biden's support rating of just 34%, the lowest of his administration, and one that would virtually likely sentence him to defeat, was revealed in a Monmouth University poll on December 18. Indeed, Biden faces certain challenges that are partially outside of his control. It was always certain that the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7 would provoke a fierce reaction, and that reaction would split a party with pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian elements, each fiercely committed to the righteousness of their cause. In a divisive period, he also had to deal with a split administration. Even with its slim majority, the GOP in the House virtually assures that Biden will not be able to advance any meaningful legislation. Biden was also occasionally thwarted by the courts on matters ranging from student loan relief to immigration. And then there's the great, inevitable problem of aging. In poll after poll, a sizable portion of voters voiced doubts about the president's ability to lead the country for a second term. Whether accurate or not, such impression might be disastrous for politics. Supporters of Biden correctly point out to reporters that the president has frequently been underestimated, particularly during his pursuit of the Democratic nominee in 2020. But he's currently in very dangerous seas. Representative Kevin McCarthy, RK. For McCarthy, it was a year marked by shame at both ends. He had to bear 14 rounds of humiliation in January, as vote after vote fell short of producing enough votes to elect him Speaker. On his 15th attempt, he was successful. He didn't live for even 9 whole months after all of that. He was removed from office on October 3rd, becoming the first speaker in history to do so by a motion to vacate. McCarthy argued that the process was unusual. House Democrats were glad to join the 8 members of his party who voted against him, thereby sealing his doom. It was amazing to witness McCarthy's rage at his rivals, particularly Rep. Matt Gaetz, RFLA, who was effectively leading them. It was returned favorably as well. Gaetz responded to McCarthy's December announcement that he will be leaving the House at the end of the year with a single-word post on X. McClellan. Governor of Florida Ron DeSantis R. Whether DeSantis is the biggest political loser of 2023 is up for debate. However, he is unquestionably its greatest letdown. DeSantis seems ready to challenge Trump seriously in the contest for the GOP nomination. He had just won a resounding win in Florida and possessed an enormous war chest. However, the DeSantis effort was slow to get off the ground and immediately backfired with a faulty event on what was then called Twitter Spaces.